Hey, I think we're recording.
All
All right.
right.
Well, hello, folks. This is I'm John Frank with Remax Professionals. Sitting here with the wonderful Alicia Wanchuk. This is a first-time virtual home buyers seminar owing to this whole COVID-19. So just wanted to sort of dive into this and give it all the hit all the high notes. We're gonna bust six myths about home buying. Talk quickly about agency. Alicia's got a whole section on getting pre-approval and then just talk about the home buying process and the closing costs and making an offer and that's about it. So without further ado, I'm gonna just lift it off like that. So welcome aboard. Six myths that we want to bust. The first one is that you need a 20% down payment. So a recent survey, more than 50% of renters reckon that they needed a 20% down payment to buy a home. Simply not the truth anymore. You can buy a home with as little as 5% down. Plus your closing costs, of course, and we'll let Alicia expand on that. Your credit needs to be perfect. Again, does not need to be perfect. You just have to have good credit, right, Alicia?
Correct.
Yeah, good credit. So you just don't need to. The bank just needs to be able to see that you make good on your debts, right? Now is a bad time to buy a house, and I want to take a little bit of time to expand on this a bit more. I mean, it seems to be a pervasive myth that interest rates are going to skyrocket, values are going to plummet. Doesn't matter if it's this year or last year or many years ago. It's always the same story. Best time to buy a home was yesterday. In the past 100 years of organized real estate in Manitoba, there have been 3 years out of those 100 that property values have dipped, and the next year in every case all those property values had recovered, and in 2 of the cases had exceeded the values of the year even prior to that. So when's the best time to buy a home? Yesterday, right? Buying a fixer-upper to save money. If you've got a great skill set and you're interested in adding that value to a home, I'm sure Alicia will agree that if you're looking at doing the plumbing, the electrical, the shingles, the windows, all those things, all that work, you're gonna save you're gonna build sweat equity in the property by saving all that labor. However, the thought is to buy a home with needs new paint, new flooring, and potentially some new shingles. Likely, if you can see it, I can see it. Alicia can see it. Everyone can see it. That's likely always been factored into the price, right? So, and of course, my personal favorite: don't settle for less than the perfect home. I hear this coming from a lot of first-time home buyers, especially young people. Alicia, maybe you could tell me, is your life totally different when you were like 25 last year to when you're like 27 now, right?
Completely different. And 27 was a long time ago.
but really, we don't know where our lives are going to lead, right? In 5 years, if you're
That's
like
right.
most Canadians, in 5 to 7 years, they're going to be moving. I mean, whether you win the lottery or you get an awesome job offer, or you flip one past the goalie, turns into triplets, or grandma's moving. Like, who knows, right?
Right.
Who knows? So
things change fast.
They do. So I think the best advice in debunking this myth is buy a home that you can make perfect for yourself, right? Because there's no such thing as a perfect home.
That's right.
And hey, there's a myth out there that says, hey, you don't need a realtor to buy a home. It's not necessarily a myth. You don't. You don't need a dentist to do your own dental work. I think it's like I personally, what do we don't charge you anything on the buy side. Come with a pile of knowledge, and the thought that you got to be an expert at buying the home yourself. It's absolutely crazy. I sell 30 to 40 homes a year, and the average Canadian sells one every 5 to 7. So given year by year 5, I've sold 200 homes, roughly speaking. So I've done it a lot. I do a lot more, right? You get a little bit more philosophical on that, but I'm not going to. So you don't need a realtor, but you just come with a pile of experience, right? So moving that forward, one of the first things if I have you in the office, the first thing I always talk about is agency. It's a bit, I always say it's drier than a popcorn fart because it is pretty dull, but it's the law, right? Like every realtor should be talking about this. So agency just simply means who works for whom, and the big two are buyer's agency, seller's agency, right? So I work both sides of my business with written agreements. I think everyone should, right? Seller's agency is just simply the real estate agent with their name on the sign. That's the seller's agent, and they have their job is to get the seller the most amount of money, the least amount of time, with the highest protections and the least amount of hassles, right? That's in a nutshell. That's the seller's agent's job. The buyer's agent, I'm going to skip forward real quick, has obligations too, right? They have 5 fiduciary obligations, fiduciary duties, right? And that's the big one is one of the big ones is accounting. Is in order to have to make a contract, you have to have a consideration, something to bind you to the deal, and that you want to know that you're going to be able to get that back as if your conditions precedent, those deal killers don't work out. Obedience, and I talk about this all the time. It's to follow lawful instructions, right? Everything in real estate has a start time and a stop time, right? So I mean, from the time of the offer is written, once it's accepted, the clock counts down. So you have to know that your agent is going to work within that time frame, get those conditions removed, because there's nothing would be more exciting than if you lost it, the deal fell apart, and another offer slid in, and you lost the house. I mean, I'd be super angry, especially if it was such a nice little home as when you're writing an offer on one, right? Loyalty is another big one. I mean, you see these words, they don't sound like a lot, but you to always keep your clients' best interest before yours. I mean, you'd never want, say, the agent you're working with to make a secret profit or something like that, and that would be the motivation to get you in the home. So loyalty, like in any relationship, is absolutely paramount. Discretion as well, right? Keep your motivations, your reasons to buy, the prices and terms you'll accept. You'd never between yourself and your agent, you'd never want that discussed openly, right? Because that would potentially compromise your bargaining position. And lastly, Karen, skill, because I mean, for most Canadians, buying a home represents a big thing, right? It's not a little thing. It's a big thing. So the whole transaction needs to be handled with definitely a certain degree of care and skill, right? Nothing to fall through those cracks. There's two other obligations, or 2 types of agency. Another real important one is the limited joint representation, and what that means is very simply that one agent has either the seller's agency and the buyer's agency, sell side and the buy side, or that one or 2 agents in the same firm have that. One is the sell side, one is the buy side, and that. The reason we want to talk about this is just to speak to like undue broker influence or keeping the duty of those duties separate that we just talked about. So that forms a dual agency, and that can be tough at times. So it should be disclosed to you right away. And of course, customer agency, no agency representation. So from here on, I'm gonna let Alicia take it away, because she's gonna talk to you about getting pre-approved. Oh no, I've used the wrong slides. Alicia.
I just realized that.
Oh, hold on. I will open another Keynote file. Here we go. Open recent. And we'll open that one because that was the right one. All right. Oh, look at all those. Here we go. There you're away.
All right. Thank you very much. So today I'm going to talk about 4 steps to getting a valid pre-approval and how to get your finances ready to purchase a house. So in a pre-approval, there are 4 different components. The first component is to confirm your income and your employment documents. Okay. The second component is to confirm your down payment documents. The third is to confirm your credit, and the fourth is to calculate your numbers, your debt servicing numbers, so that we can determine how much you can qualify for in a home purchase. So John, if you could jump to the next slide, I will get into the first component, which is income documents and confirming your income and employment. So for different types of income, there are different documents required. For the first type of income, we talk about salary or full-time income, which is represented by at least 35 guaranteed hours a week at work, okay? Where your salary doesn't change, your hourly rate doesn't change, you're generally always getting paid the same thing. For that type of income, it's pretty easy for documents. We would need your most recent pay stub, and we would need either a letter of employment or your most recent tax year's T4 document, or your most recent notice of assessment or T1 general. So it's pretty easy. The second type of income would be part-time income or fluctuating income. So fluctuating income could encompass bonuses, overtime, commission income, or any sort of non-guaranteed hours. A good example of this would be a healthcare aide or a nurse who would be considered a 0.6, let's say, or a 0.7. So that's not technically a full-time job, but they'll have a certain number of guaranteed hours of work, plus they'll get overtime hours. So for that type of income, which is considered fluctuating income, we would need to get your 2 most recent tax years, notices of assessment, or T4s if it's from the same employer. And then also your most recent pay stub. And what we do with that is we take a 2-year average of your income of the 2 recent tax years, and we call that your income. The third type of income would be for self-employed people. And for self-employed people, depending on the kind of structure you have set up, whether you're a corporation or if you're a sole proprietorship or a partnership, there are different documents required for all of those types of income, for all of those types of self-employment rather. So the short answer for self-employed people, if you're doing a pre-approval, just come and talk to me and I'll tell you what you need to get instead of listing out every single document here. It's just a little bit more of a complicated story if you're self-employed. So my advice there would just be to talk to somebody up front. So the next component is down payment, and I'll talk about the different types of down payment that can be used in a mortgage application. So the first would be for if it's coming from your own resources, your own savings, RRSPs or investment accounts. That's pretty easy. We would just need to get your most 3 months recent bank statements or RRSP statements or investment statements to show the accumulation of the funds and that they've been in your possession for the last 90 days. There is the First Time Homebuyers Plan RRSP program where if you are a first-time buyer, you can withdraw, I believe it's up to $35,000 of your RRSPs to be used towards a home purchase, and then you have 15 years to repay that money. My understanding is that if you don't repay that money within 15 years, it just gets added to your taxable income. So there's ways to use that money that you've got socked away without necessarily experiencing a tax consequence at the beginning. The second type of down payment would be a gift from a family member. A family member would be considered mother, father, sister, or brother. You can't take, technically speaking, you can't take a financial gift to be used as a down payment from anyone other than immediate family. So the bank would just require you to sign a gift letter. It would require the person who's giving the gift to sign that letter, and then we document it that way. So that's the second type of down payment. There is another type of down payment that's not appropriate for everybody. It's called flex down, and what that means is that if you can afford it, if you have the room in your debt servicing, you can technically borrow your down payment by using a line of credit or a loan. But the catch with that is that you'd have to be able to service the debt, it's called, in your mortgage application. So that means we have to take into account that new debt in your mortgage application, and we have to include the minimum payment on that debt when calculating your numbers. So again, that's something to be discussed on an individual basis with people. It's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. So the next component would be confirming your credit. Thank you, John. Minimum requirements. So there are some minimum requirements to get a mortgage. For example, if you're putting less than 20% down, you will have what's called an insured mortgage through either CMHC or Genworth. This is mandatory insurance that's placed on mortgages with less than 20% down. And the minimum credit score required to get an insured mortgage is 600. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean just because you've got a 600 credit score that you're automatically approved. Many banks have their own minimum credit score requirements. And for example, here at CIBC, ours is 620. And again, if you have a 620 credit score, that doesn't mean you're necessarily automatically approved. We look at the entire picture of your credit and look at your payment history, your debt load, type of debt you have, all your inquiries. Many different factors go into confirming your credit and deciding if you're a credit-worthy borrower for a mortgage. Second thing I want to discuss with that is thin credit or alternative credit and alternative credit. So thin credit refers to somebody who's had a credit card maybe for not quite 2 years yet. They don't have a lot of credit established, but maybe that will give them a really high credit score. The general rule for credit is you need to have 2 trade lines with minimum limits of $2,000 each, and that you've had them for at least 2 years. So that's kind of the golden standard that lenders look for when approving somebody for a mortgage, is they want to see that you've got some credit established and that you can act responsibly with it. In some cases, for example, if somebody is new to Canada and they don't have a lot of credit established yet, but they're ready to buy a home, we can accept alternative sources of credit, which would include things like rent receipts from a landlord for a previous year, like 12 months, or 12 months worth of a phone bill that showing that you've made your payments on time and in full every month, or utility bill or an auto pack bill, that sort of thing. So there are situations where we can accept alternative forms of credit in the absence of an established credit score. And then the third piece for this section is how to improve your credit score. And it's pretty simple. It's quite common sense, I think. Make your payments, make at least your minimum payments on time every month. Don't go over limit on your credit cards. And if you are over limit, bring them down as fast as possible and try not to exceed 75% of your limit. So for example, if you've got a credit card with a $1,000 limit, try not to use more than $750 of that credit card at any given time. That's called credit utilization, and lenders like to see that, as low as possible, of course, but 75% is at that threshold, they start to look a little closer at you. So keep your debts low, make your payments on time every month. Don't go over limit, and obviously also don't apply for unnecessary credit. Don't apply for every credit card that you get asked to apply for and every loan. It's not a great idea to keep open credit if you don't need it. So that's it for confirming credit. And then the last component in a pre-approval would be calculating your numbers. John, if I could get you to flip to the last slide for me, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. So calculating your maximum. How much can you afford? We use a calculation called gross debt service and total debt service ratio to determine how much people can afford. And it's basically a calculation where we take the total housing costs on the proposed property that you're going to buy, plus all the minimum payments on all of your different debts, like your credit cards, your loans, lines of credit. We take the housing costs and minimum payments on debts divided by your total qualifying income, and that spits out a ratio. That ratio needs to be under a certain percentage point to qualify for that mortgage. So long story short, if you want to figure out, there are lots of mortgage calculators online. If you really want to figure out what you can qualify for, talk to a mortgage professional. Talk to me. I can figure that out for you. There are many, many different factors that go into calculating your numbers that, you know, these online calculators don't take into account. There are many different things like property taxes, heating costs, the way we calculate certain debts, the way we calculate income. It's not just as simple as filling out a calculator online. So do yourself a favor and talk to a professional about that. And then we can actually figure out with your specific situation what you can qualify for. And that, in a nutshell, is of how you get a valid pre-approval and the steps that we go through to get that for you. So we've talked about your income, we've talked about down payment, we've talked about your credit, and we've talked about how we calculate your maximums. And with that, thank you very much again, John. I'll turn it back over to you to finish up.
Awesome. And so, I mean, and also at the end of it all, like Alicia's going to give you a letter that says you're good to go, right?
That's right.
But you know, it's like fresh fish, right? It's only good for a certain amount of time, right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, once you got it, then it's time to come back to me, right?
That's right.
And start that whole home buying process. So while we have you in the office, what we do is I'd create an MLS Backstage Pass for you as being one of the simplest way for you to show me what you're interested in. So because this process is about you, the buyer, we'd make this portal specific to your needs, right? So you tell me the area where you want to live, the style of home you want, whether it's a 2-story, a bungalow, or split level or bi-level, whatever, number of bedrooms, bathrooms you would like, some of the amenities you'd like to see as part of the home. So I'll create that portal for you, which is really it's a great big fishing net. So what we want to do is catch as many fish as we possibly can, and then throw back the ugly ones, right? The ones that don't match your search. So you're going to get listings from all realtors, not just, of course, myself. You'd get them from, and all brokerages. So from Remax, Royal LePage, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, and all the little guys out there. Even a number of for sale by owners. Get it all in one place, and it comes to you. You take that time to search through it, through that stuff on your own, and then let me know how which ones you want to see. I mean, drive by late at night, search it on your coffee break at work, whatever. Maybe at the time you sit down with your partner to do so. So for a lot of folks, they I guess they figure especially first-time home buyers, they don't know that it's a bit of a process, not an event, buying a home. So there's a timeline, a time frame to buying a home. I hear from folks. One of my first questions out of my mouth is, after are you working with an agent? Have you got your pre-approval in order? Is like, well, when do you want to be moved into if you wave that magic wand, when do you want to be moved into your place? And often folks say, fall, before summer, something like that. Well, I mean, if it's April and you're looking to move in by end of June, by July 1, time to hustle. Like there's a timeline to buying a home, right? Because you don't just buy it and move in, right? For folks that are earnestly looking for a property, it takes roughly about 30 days, has been my experience, from the time you start searching to the time you write your first offer. Right, and of course, once your offer is accepted, then you have those conditions precedent, those deal killer conditions that have to be satisfied. Right, the big one being financing. Right, you've already done some of the heavy lifting with Alicia, so we know you can afford it. But it's whether the bank is willing to lend on that property. Right, that's the other thing. worth letting on, right? And of course the home inspection, we want to make sure, you know, that the home is looks as good when we look more carefully at it as it does just, you know, when we wander through it for one of our showings, right? And once those conditions are satisfied, the deal is considered firm, and you know, the sellers start making plans to move out, and you start making plans to move in. I mean, like Alicia just changed residences, right? It's not something you're gonna do like overnight, right? It takes time. You gotta find the place and then organize yourself, back up the first one, change all your subscriptions, etc., and then move into the next place, right? So so it's 45 to 60 days is pretty normal for most folks. Anything less than 30 would be really quick. Anything more than 90 days or 3 months tends to be a little longer, right? Considered long, right? So what happens when we do find a place to buy, right? Well, we have to use some of that specialized market knowledge, and I'd like to move us. Oh goodness, like to move us back. Move that stuff out of the way. I can't move the pictures. Oh my goodness. Pardon me. What a sneeze. Allergic to my cat. All right, so first thing to know is that real estate is unique, right? And we create value by comparison shopping. So whether it's like a toaster, TV, or teaspoon, we create value by seeing what is place something selling for, and what are the final purchase prices. And unfortunately, in real estate, all that stuff is hidden, and real estate is unique. So you know, you see a house in Tuxedo, it's not going to be selling for the same price as a house in River Heights. That's just the nature of the world, right? So what we try to do is go comparison shopping and make homes as similar as possible, right? So if you're looking at a home in River Heights and it's looking good, like it matches most of what you're looking for, we try to match it up with other homes that are a similar age, similar size, similar number of bedrooms, similar style, right? And we get a range, right? So because I haven't met a buyer yet that wants to pay more than they have to for a property. So we want to fall into that range, right? What is that, and determine what is fair market value, right? So again, most buyers they'll be writing an offer after about seeing 10 to 15 homes, has been my experience, right? And after you've seen that, you've really got a very strong idea what the market's going to give you for your dollar. And if after seeing 15 homes, you're not seeing anything you like, and then you kind of got to make a change, whether it's finding more money or lowering your expectations, right? That's the life and nature seeks a balance. So does the real estate market. So there we have it. That's pretty much it. Once we write an offer, I mean, we could talk about the forms or whatever, but it gets a little bit long. And lastly, you've got some legal and closing costs. So in Manitoba, you'll need a lawyer to wrap this all up and put a big bow on it for you. You should have about 2% of the value of the home reserved, of the purchase price reserved for these closing costs. And the lawyer is not going to be the big cost there. It's actually going to be the land transfer tax, right? In Manitoba, is very, very, very expensive to transfer title in. I don't know why, but it always has been. Lawyer will be $600-700 for a lawyer. Land transfer tax, roughly 2% of the purchase price of the home. Of course, the lawyer is going to do stuff for you inside of his fees, right? He'll prepare do a title search, because we're going to ask that the title be clean and clear and free of all encumbrances or interests or secondary mortgages or builder's liens, right? We don't want to do that nonsense lingering offer when you take title to it, take possession of it yourself. He'll prepare a zoning memorandum, and in lieu of a current survey. Do you need a current survey, Alicia?
No.
No. But
Nope.
title insurance you probably want, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty standard too. So,
absolutely. So a lawyer will prepare you a title insurance in lieu of a current survey, right? And it'll be,
mhm.
one-time charge that, that protects you against all the sins of the past and sins of the future, providing you don't know about them, right? So
Right.
title insurance is some other stuff as well. And of course, they'll prepare a tax certificate, all right, because we pay our taxes in the end of June in Manitoba, but what we do is they're due actually in January. So the closer you get to January, the smaller that tax certificate becomes. But that's it in a nutshell. And if you don't have a lawyer like Alicia or myself, I'd be happy to recommend one. But that's it. That's it. That's buying that's your high level home buyer seminar in a nutshell. If you want to know more, like both Alicia and I are available anytime. So here's our information. Give us a holler if you got any questions, especially on the mobile mortgage side. I mean, Alicia has been doing this seems like forever. So
Yeah.
she's incredibly skilled. Myself, I'm in my 7th year, so I can answer almost any question.
John is a fantastic real estate agent. He was my sister's real estate agent, and I hear nothing but wonderful things about him. So I recommend you use John.
Yeah, and like with Alicia. All right. So okay. So we shall talk to you. Thank you so much for helping out on this, Alicia. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching. And please let us know if you have any questions.
You bet. All right. Toodaloo.